This universe, as God created it, is governed by laws, right? For example, gravity is one such law. None of us can change or escape gravity, right? And we have been confused and duped as well with this legal system, whereby they say that is the law. But that laws change however they feel like it needs to change, right? And by definition, a law cannot change. So those are just rules that they disguise as laws in this legal system. Welcome to another episode of Wake Us Up in the Hood. My name is Marshall, and today I would like to remind you guys about this principle that we said we are going to incorporate in our daily lives. This represents a tool that can be used and be applied, to ensure that you develop as an individual. So the red dot represents all the information that you have learned up until this day in your life, and the green is represented by all the knowledge and information that you have yet to learn, right? Because as I've grown and developed, I've come to learn and observe that the more I know, I actually come to realize how very little I know, right? And this, like I said, is a principle that can be used to ensure that you do not run into situations whereby you act as if you know everything, but then life teaches you lessons the hard way, right? So for today, I would like for us to reflect on this video that I came across on YouTube. It's a very interesting video. I encourage you to go and watch it. The title of this video is Meet the Most Interesting Man on the Planet, right? So it's essentially more for entrepreneurs specifically. However, this gentleman in the orange top that you see here, he's asking him a profound question, and I think that answer he's responding with can teach us a lot, and I think many of you can benefit from it. Hence I felt the need to share it with you. So let's listen to what question he's asking and what response he's getting, and then we reflect.
But what would you say is the best lesson that you've learned from studying world history? If there's, one particular lesson that you focused on or that you've studied a lot, what would you say that is?
We just keep getting duped. We just keep getting fooled as humans over and over again, right? It's the same old story in a new timeline. People want to rise to power. People want to take advantage of others. They want to take advantage of the poor and the weak, right? They want to pit people against each other. They're constantly making us fight so they can rise to power, right? And we keep falling for the same tricks. If you keep looking in history, the same tricks that they've done before we had TV and social media, whether they walked the streets and sold a narrative, and then they gave yellow journalism in newspapers to sell a narrative, or they push things on social media to sell a narrative. We keep falling for these emotional decisions, and we keep fighting each other, and we keep drawing hard lines in the sands, and we argue over things all the time that don't really matter, right? Instead of doing that, we should actually find real solutions. But we can't, because we've already determined that you are on the other side of this ideologic argument. So whatever you say, I'm going to argue with you. And I wish that as humans, we can look back in history and say, this is our nature to be tribal. How do we become more constructive and actually find it in our nature to work together and to understand each other and understand why you're coming from that position and why I'm coming from this position, and what do we do about it now to make it better for everybody?
So as you've heard now the response that guy gave, this is something many of you already know, right? This is something many of you have already heard, but it did not register yet. Meaning you did not yet fully comprehend the gravity of what that means and what it means for you personally, specifically, alright, as a person. And I would like to take this opportunity to respond to some of the comments that were made, right, on the previous video that I did, where I responded on a video of citizen concern, where I tried to highlight the racial stigmatization that Katlego was busy doing, right? Because as many of you feel, and this is my initial experience as well of citizen concern, is that they hold to account our leaders that, you know, fail us. And I commend them for the work they do. It is very commendable, and the way they represent information to us, they present, sorry, information to us is very, I do not want to say entertaining, you know, but it entices us, it hold our attention, and we absorb the information, right? However, as of lately, I have been making the observation that they are no longer focusing on the leaders that are failing us, right? And now they are more focused on how can they prove to us that black people is a problem in this country, right? Black people's behavior. And what was so strange for me is it is predominantly black and colored people, you know, that fault with my findings in my reflections, right? And what is also stunning but also not surprising is that none of them who commented, none of them you know, who took the opportunity and time to use their energy and time, you know, to write a message, to respond and share their sentiment, how they feel and what they think of my reflections, you know. The part that is stunning and not surprising, like I said, is the fact that neither of them, none of them responded to the actual facts that I laid down, you know, the points that I highlighted. For example, like I said, the racial stigmatization, whereby she is trying to insinuate that black people equals illegal dumping, white people equals cleanliness, right? And none of them who felt the need, you know, to critique me, which they have the right to do, was able to respond to that request. You know, I wanted to get their views on Katlego's sentiment or insinuation, black equals illegal dumping, white equals cleanliness. I wanted to get their feel, how do they feel about that. But for some reason, they were not even able to observe that. They were not able to discern that, right? And again, this is not me insulting them, this is me just highlighting, you know. And here you just heard this guy saying that They use propaganda to push a certain narrative so that we can be divided and fight amongst ourselves while they do their own thing in the background, right? Stealing our resources, etc., right? So this is not for those people personally, but however, I feel like those people must also pay even more attention to this video, right? Because here is an opportunity for us to reflect on what transpired, you know, and try to understand why did I feel the need to critique this guy, but I wasn't able to respond to his observation with Katlego insinuating that black equals illegal dumping, white equals cleanliness, right? Is it that they do not have a problem with that? And if they do not have a problem with it, I really consider them, I really am requesting them to consider whether they do not have any underlying racist tendencies that they might not be consciously aware of, right? So that they can do further introspection and try to determine why do I have this particular thought process and thought patterns, right? Why do I have this perception? Why do I have this world view, right? And one of the other comments also said that, but this is supposed to be a colored consciousness YouTube channel, and why, if you are going to talk about anything else besides colored stuff, then I might as well go to another platform where I can learn about stuff that is non-colored related, right? However, I want to take this opportunity also to share with you that on this journey, we've been doing this now at least for a year, and I'm not sure about my partners, but me personally, I've made this observation that we have this problem in our communities, right, and in our families, primarily because there are certain lessons in life that we have not had an opportunity to learn, right? For example, this lesson this guy just shared with regards to him or learning throughout history that there's always been an agenda, you know, to keep people fighting against each other, and those people who has that agenda propagates a certain narrative, you know, and while they are doing that, they are in the background stealing wealth and resources, whatever it is, you know. And here is where many also start to get offended, because I'm also highlighting that religion is one of those mechanisms, you know, that they use to divide us so that we can fight here. My religion is the right one, yours is wrong, you are going to hell because you are worshipping a false god, etc., etc., right? Just like religion is one of those mechanisms which they use to keep us fighting amongst each other, and like you heard what he said, we are defending a particular ideology, you know, and fighting another particular ideology that you know opposes our own personal ideology. Similarly, like that, politics is also one of those mechanisms. But now you might ask, if I say politics is also a problem that is being used, you know, against us, to keep us divided, fighting amongst each other, and then they conquer us, you know, during this divide, because different political movements have different political ideologies, and then we feel the party that we belong to is the correct one, represents the correct values and principles, and hence we advocate for that one and oppose any other political party. Alright? So, why do I participate in politics if politics is such a big problem? I participate in politics and advocate for a particular party mainly because of the current circumstances that we face in our country and in the world as a whole. Right? For example, I'm a colored male, and we know what the situation is in terms of this country's policies when it comes to colored people. Right? So that is one of the great and the biggest motivators that makes me to participate, and specifically makes me to take this position and supporting the ideology of National Colored Congress specifically. Alright? And I do also want to make this clear distinction. Wake Us Up in the Hood is not National Colored Congress. National Colored Congress is not Wake Us Up in the Hood. Alright? Although us as Wake Us Up in the Hood are members of National Colored Congress, we are totally different and separate entities. Alright? It's just our mission, morals, values, and ideology overlaps at certain places. Alright? Hence, we feel that National Colored Congress best represents our political preferences. Alright? Hence, we are members of National Colored Congress, and hence, we advocate for National Colored Congress. Right? And the reason why I specifically also cover content that is not only focused specifically on colored consciousness, right, is, as I mentioned, throughout this journey, I've discovered that some of the lessons, that we need to have learned in life at any given time on our journey in life, some of these lessons have never been, people have not been exposed to it. Alright? Hence, we have that struggle of being able to communicate with one another, because I maybe have learned a particular lesson, and now I have gained some knowledge regarding a particular subject, and now when I speak to a person who was not exposed to that lesson, now they don't have that knowledge. So when we speak, that person is not going to completely understand me, because he was not exposed to what I have been exposed to. So when I speak, he's going to only understand me based on what he has been exposed to. Hence, we have this problem with communication. Hence, we must communicate. Hence, it is so easy for platforms like Citizen Concern, to misinform us and to mislead us, because we haven't learned lessons to be able to discern fiction from fact, right? And so people can easily manipulate us. And I've taken this decision that I am going to incorporate content that is non-conscious, not non-colored conscious specifically, but it brings value in the sense that it teaches us those lessons that are not in the colored communities, right? So that these lessons can become part of the colored culture, so that colored people can be more exposed to these lessons. And if you've listened to some of my videos, you would have learned that I reference a gentleman that goes by the name Jacques Fresco a lot, and one of his theories is that environment shapes human behavior, right? And I given my perspective on that video where I responded to Katlego's video of citizen concern, and I made this example of the environment shaping behavior, and thus these people that come into that community where dumping has never occurred, now that dumping is part of their behavior, and now they do it wherever they are, right? So that is one of the lessons I learned from Jacques. Jacques also shares one of his other observations, which I also feel is very profound, right? Which is something I already was in a sense familiar with, but I just did not learn it anywhere else before, so I did not have words, to express it, to be able to explain it to the next person. And that lesson that I learned from him is also that our communication, our language, regardless of what language you speak, and when I say language, I don't mean like English, French, Spanish, Afrikaans, isiXhosa, what, different types of language. When I say language, I mean to say how we communicate. So our language is underdeveloped in the sense that if we look, for example, at architects, right? If an architect draws up a plan, say for example, he's now from South Africa, he draws up a plan, and he sends that plan to China, where they don't speak Afrikaans. That architect in China is going to be able to understand that plan, because in architecture, they have certain terminologies, and they are able to understand architecture, So a Chinese person will easily communicate with a colored person if they both are architects, because they speak a language both are familiar with, right? However, when an architect speaks to a lawyer, they are gonna have trouble understanding each other, because lawyers use a different terminology to what architects do. Similarly, doctors have a particular terminology different from what architects do, right? So doctors and architects also have a greater chance to miscommunicate and misunderstand each other. Now, in the English language, if I were to draw up a plan as an architect only using the English language, and I send it off to England where they speak English, chances are that person might build the building with deformities and not with regulation according to the plans that I've written out, because the way they understand English and the way I understand English is totally and fundamentally different, although we use the same words, right? So people who speak English with different backgrounds might misunderstand each other because they have cultural differences and they are exposed to different experiences. So when they use English, they use it with a different intent. Intent, not really the correct word, but when they want to communicate, the person they communicate to often they not misunderstand what they try to articulate, which is very clearly evident in my previous video, because I speak English, but for some reason all the points that I highlight are missed by many people. right? And instead they focus on me responding to Katlego rather than me highlighting the racial stigmatization that Katlego was busy doing, right? So that to me is also evident that they did not understand me when I was communicating, alright? And hence I feel it is vitally important that I highlight that so that people can, you know, be aware and start to learn. And one of the lessons again which Jacques shared with us, you know, which I also feel is very profound, is the fact that he said throughout his experience, you know, and I think he lived up until 102 years old, something like that, but that's besides the point. He said that you cannot teach critical thinking to anyone, you know. Critical thinking is something a person should self-develop. However, you can give that person little tools so for him to use to develop his critical thinking skills. And that lesson that I showed you in the beginning can be considered as one such tool, you know, that principle, by saying that this red dot represents all the information I know, and the green represents all the information I do not yet know. Alright? So, if you apply that to and apply it to all the different type of scenarios, whether you go to school, whether you go to church, whether you go to work, whether you are just in society, in the public, you know, and you apply that principle, you are now practicing and upskilling your critical thinking ability. Alright? So, hence, I am sharing this with you so that I can impart some tools onto you to help develop your critical thinking skills. Alright? And it is because us in the colored community, us in the black community, us in any community, why do we struggle to find each other and you know, and to work together towards mutual prosperity, is precisely because critical thinking is what we lack, right? And once a person has a different perspective and disagrees with our views, we reject that person and we fight that person just because we do not have the ability to apply our critical thinking to say that, oh, okay, this person has a different perspective. Oh, and his perspective is not contributing to mine, so I'm just gonna leave it and let it go. And if it helps me and it contributes to me, I'm gonna take it and learn from it. That is what a person that has the ability to apply critical thinking would do instead of fighting, you know. And we in our communities, we fight because we are unable to apply critical thinking. Alright? And then I also want to use this opportunity briefly just to respond to these comments that we get from people where they say the NCC, it would be great if the NCC and the PA can work together for the colored people, alright, for the prosperity of the colored people in general. I feel like these people that make these statements have never taken the opportunity to go and read the PA's manifesto, right? And I encourage you to please go and read the PA's manifesto so that you can see how fundamentally different the PA's manifesto is from the NCC's manifesto, right? And if I can make a comparison, it is like, say for example, the ANC is now NCC and PA is the DA. So the ANC and the DA's policies totally contradict each other, right? Hence the GNU is so dysfunctional, right? So the manifesto of the NCC and the manifesto of the PA speaks totally different stuff from one another, you know. The NCC's manifesto speaks of the liberation, you know, of colored people, whereas the PA speaks of the continuation of the oppression of the marginalized people in this country, because it's not advocating for nationalization, right? Not nationalization of the mines, not nationalization of the Reserve Bank, right? It wants to privatize and keep everything private, whilst we are fully aware that the DA currently is selling our land here in the Western Cape to the Zionists from Israel and Europe and America, etc. Right? So that is fundamentally why the president of NCC and the president of the PA is not gonna be able to work together, because the NCC is standing firm that its first and only objective for now is to get the colored people on the same level as the blacks and whites. The PA is not advocating for that, right? The PA advocates for, here is the black and white people, here is the colored people, let's all move together to a rainbow nation, whilst the colored people still remain behind. That is what the PA is advocating for. The PA is advocating for us to move like this into the future, right? Where the NCC says we want to come up here and then we move together into the future, right? So you see the difference there. That is why the NCC and the PA will not be able to work together up only until the PA changes its policies and manifesto, right? So that it can speak to the liberation of colored people, right? So I hope you find value in that. This guy is asking him yet another profound question, but I do not want to emphasize on that. I wanted you to focus on what he said, you know, that response, that in history it has always been the same, you know. People have been duping us with a certain narrative pushing propaganda because they have an alternative agenda which they are running in the background, and that is what we have experienced. The DA has done to colored people since forever it started, and now the PA is doing the same thing. And what is concerning for me is the colored people in the PA have not learned their lesson from the DA, and now they are going to experience the same thing with the PA. Alright? They, here in the public, they speak about the representation of coloreds and all that, but on paper, in their manifesto, in parliament, where it matters, they don't speak for colored people. And the colored people are not able to make that observation, and that is very concerning for me. Hence, we do everything, you know, and hence I am also now covering content that is not specifically colored conscious, but it has the necessary lessons that we can learn to help bring about that necessary awareness and consciousness, so that we can open our eyes to all the mechanisms being used by our oppressors to keep us oppressed, you know, keep us fighting against each other so that we can remain divided, right? So if you have any disagreements in this particular segment, this episode, please drop your sentiments and comments in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share with me what is your greatest lesson that you have learned throughout history, right? And what I have learned throughout history is more or less similar to what he is saying, but I will just phrase it differently. You know, I would not necessarily say that history repeats itself, right? But I would say that history goes in cycles, you know. And I am of the view that because our universe is an enclosed system, right? There is only a limited amount of things that can happen, right? There's not an infinite amount of possibilities in this universe. There is a finite amount of possibilities in this universe, right? They are so vast that it seems infinite, but I promise you it's not. And by that I mean to say only certain things can happen in this universe, because this universe, as God created it, is governed by laws, right? For example, gravity is one such law. None of us can change or escape gravity, right? And we have been confused and duped as well with this legal system, whereby they say that is the law. But that laws change however they feel like it needs to change, right? And by definition, a law cannot change. So those are just rules that they disguise as laws in this legal system, right? Laws cannot be changed. It's like truth. No matter what I say, no matter what you say, none of us can change the truth. The truth is unchangeable, and the truth is law, right? I'm saying all of this so that we can put our attention and focus on observing all the laws God has created to govern this universe, right? So that we may live in a way that is in accordance with that laws, right? Because Jesus makes a statement in the Bible to say that the true worshippers of God will worship Him in spirit and in truth, right? So in spirit meaning, and again, here is where religious people are going to have a problem with my interpretation, right? But I don't care what your feelings are, right? Because I know each and every one of us, when we read the Bible, we are triggered differently, right? Because we are created unique, each and every one of us. So we are supposed to get different interpretations. And again, I'm sharing all of this with you with the intent to impart small little tools. You can choose whether you are going to use it or not. Ultimately, your development is dependent on you. So you can take or you can leave. What you do with it, you are the only one that is going to suffer the consequences of your decisions, right? That is how God designed this universe. And I am highlighting again this because our schooling system does not teach us critical thinking. It does not impart tools to develop our critical thinking. Nor in the church are we given tools, to develop our critical thinking skills. Critical thinking seems to be, in my observation, even considered as a taboo in the church environment, right? Because in church there is no question and answer session, right? Whereby people can pose questions to the pastor in public, there where everybody is present, you know, so that he can get clarity about stuff that is not clear to him or her in the Bible, right? In church, I have yet to attend a church where in the service they provide that opportunity for question and answers, right? And if your interpretation differs from the church's, then you are labeled a bad spirit, you are a demon, you are from hell, right? And that is how religion has conditioned us, right? We are not willing to hear a different perspective so that we can determine whether our current worldview is it correct or not, right? And I want to leave you with this thought as well. If we believe we have already discovered God in whatever religion it may be, why is the world still in chaos? Why is the world seems to be digressing rather than progressing, rather than to improve? Why does it seem like it's going into chaos even further and further? But religion claims that we have discovered God, we have the answer, come to church. Right? And again, in my personal view, in my personal interpretation, the church that the Bible is referring to is not the building, right? Because where one or two of us come together in His name, that is church. So even here on this platform, this is church I'm conducting now. Because I'm imparting lessons onto you, and that has been Jesus' practice, imparting lessons onto His disciples. And again, this is my personal view. You can disagree with me, but in my interpretation, it seems to be the one thing that you should not aspire to is to become a disciple, you know, because the disciples walked with Jesus. They walked with Him, you know, when He was alive. They walked next to Him. They had the privilege. He imparted lessons onto them, but they were so valakile. They could not understand the stuff He spoke about, right? So, my observation is, a disciple is not something you should be striving for, right? Because Jesus also makes the statement that if you want to follow me, you must carry your cross, right? You must pick up and carry your cross. So, there already is a clue that we are not supposed to help Jesus carry His cross because He managed fine with His own cross. We are supposed to pick up our own cross like He picked up His cross, right? If we want to follow Him, we must do what He did, right? If we want to get to heaven, we must do what He did. He is the way. The way He did it is the way to get to heaven, right? And again, that is my interpretation. You can disagree if you receive a different interpretation when you read the Bible, right? So let's end this video by listening to this question. Hear what this guy's response is to that question, and then we leave it at that. So for that, I'm going to greet you. This has been Marshall. This has been Marshall for Wake Us Up in the Hood. I will see you in the next one.
Greatest lesson that your father taught you?
The greatest lesson I learned from my father is the one I keep saying, which is don't get caught up with the money. And you can't say it enough, because I've seen so many people change because I got money, right? It's not about the money. It's about the personal growth. Who are you as a person? Because say I had 100 million right now.
Hey, so I'm standing right now outside my old busy stomping grounds in the city of London in the building where...
And you took it away from me. Who am I?
So basically what he is saying there, what he tried to say, is that life is not about the money, right? If you were a millionaire, right, and they strip you of that money instantly, if you don't have that money anymore, then who are you really, right? So your focus should not be on chasing the money, right? Your focus should be on chasing to find out who is the real you, the you God created. You must aspire to gain knowledge of self, right? Discover who you are, right? So that is what he ultimately explained. I'm paraphrasing, but like I said, I encourage you, go and watch that video, because he shares a lot of important information I feel like you can benefit of. But I don't want to play that video for you here, because the people are also complaining that my videos are too long, right? But I'm also going to say that the people that are serious in business, right, they understand that it's not about the length of your content, your videos. It is about the context and the quality thereof, right? Are people able to gain valuable information from it, right? Or are they just being entertained? And it seems like the people that is saying that my videos are too long, they are looking for entertainment. I'm sorry, I'm not a comedian, I'm not an entertainer. I'm not able to entertain people, right? I'm only able to help people develop. That's all I can do. And if you are looking for entertainment, it's best you not stick around on this platform, because on this platform we are going to dive into concepts that people normally avoid, because it's uncomfortable to speak about. But it is because we've been avoiding these uncomfortable topics that we have not been able to make the progression whereby we can come to a position where we meet each other halfway and agree to disagree, just so that we can make progress in society, specifically in our country, South Africa, so that we can take our country to become a first world country, right? So this has been Marcel. If you find any value, please consider to subscribe. Please like the video. Please share this video with anyone that you feel like might be able to gain value. But let's leave it for a year now. I will get you in the next one. Peace.